Okay, this is a follow-up video to the top 10 do's and don'ts of the Madden offseason. And here we are live at the draft with the Lions team that I'm controlling. And we have picks 5 and 10, as I mentioned in that video. And the predicament that I was a little bit worried about has pretty much happened, where we have the first 4 picks all being top 5 guys, leaving us with one last top 5 guy as far as the projections go. And that player is left tackle out of Alabama, Neal. Now, left tackle is not a huge need for us. We have Taylor Decker, who's been a good player for the Lions in real life. But I talked a lot in that video about best player available. There are a lot of other players I like here. I like Andrew Booth. I like Garrett Wilson. I like Aiden Hutchinson, even Malik Willis. Could be a fit, Drake London. So again, just kind of looking at that next tier, I should say, of projected players. There's a lot of different guys here. Ahmad Gardner, Chris Olave, so Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, Carson Strong. I think all these could be really good picks. Definitely we'll get one of these guys with our 10th pick, and potentially another one of these guys can fall down to even the second round potentially. We have a pretty early pick there. What's not going to happen is Neal is not going to fall to pick number 10. So even though left tackle is not a humongous need, to me, he's by far the best available player. Even though I haven't scouted him a ton, he is just a beast of a player here. And it's going to give us 2 bookend tackles that are both essentially 21 or 22 years old here for the future with this team. I mean, goodness. I mean, our pass blocking should be just crazy with these guys. And both are, of course, really, really strong run blockers as well. And so, this is kind of looking like the pick that I'm going to make. Again, just kind of following my strategies of really being focused on best player available and just picking a guy that's not going to be a miss. You just cannot have a miss here picking in the top 5 with him having that projected top 5 pick. That really makes it a heck of a lot easier. And of course, the difficulty of this is that we have Decker, who's not bad, but he's also not a scheme fit for us here. He's close, but he's not there as a pass protector. And also, I don't really think Neal is going to be either. He's going to probably be in a very similar boat, probably a couple points off of that. He'll be power pass protector, probably just like Taylor Decker. So it's kind of like, geez, you're getting the exact same player. But Taylor Decker is never going to be a great Madden player. Again, real life, debatable, talking Madden here. He is going to be an above average quality, what they call a star player, which is nice to have. But to me, even though it's not a huge position of need, and we have tons of other needs, we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. I don't have to fix all the problems this year. I can't pass on a tackle that looks that good at such an important position and pair him up with another 21-year-old in Penei Sewell. I mean, we're going to have just 2 stud tackles, and I can build around that. I got no problem with that. And all those other spots, there's tons of other players I like at 10. Another player, I'm sure, will hopefully drop to us at 37, and we're still going to pull 3 starters out of this. And we'll have to figure out what we do with Taylor Decker. I took you that screen, but I didn't show you what I wanted to talk about. The problem here is that right now we would have a savings of negative 2.5 because of this huge penalty. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to cut or even trade him this season. We might trade him and just kind of take the penalty, similar to what the Lions did by trading Stafford. We'll get more value with him in this year. But it never hurts to have 3 tackles, but I really would like to get Neal in there to start accumulating playing time and accumulating XP and so on. But, he's got 3 more years left on his contract. It would definitely be a bit of a hit, but we have that cap space. So again, another one of the tidbits of the top 10 list I talked about, leaving yourself some cap space so that you can maneuver a little after the draft. Maybe we make a trade to move him and eat that salary, or we don't, and we do it in the offseason, and that's fine too. But just looking at how things are laying out, he's going to be our pick. To me, he's got that top 5 talent. Now, there's a chance he's a complete bust. I don't know. But how things are right now, of the highly scouted guys I have, I'm just not completely comfortable, grabbing any of these particular guys. Garrett Wilson had a positive story, so I am somewhat tempted to go and grab him, but I don't know. He's a consideration. Malik Willis had some positive stories about him as well. Drake London had some positive stories. And I'm pausing and giving myself even my own kind of second thoughts. But yeah, anyway, I think he's going to be the pick here. So that's going to be the plan, is drafting Evan Neal here for the Detroit Lions. So let's see if we're making the right call here, drafting Evan Neal.
And the Chargers now on the clock. Who do they have their eye on?
Well, I'm pretty excited because we just earned the badge Stud Finder. And here you can see we have a hidden dev trait. This is the first time I'm seeing this. I'm just kind of pausing. 95 strength, which is just bonkers. And let's see how his archetypes line up here. Oh, it's not going to show us on the screen, but again, those are the ratings that we saw earlier. But we have a hidden dev trait player here who is 21 years old, 6'7", 350. Thrilled with the pick. Absolutely thrilled with the pick. So again, a really, really good example of going a really heavy focus on best player available within reason. Of course, there are some exceptions. Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City probably doesn't need to be drafting a quarterback, even if he's maybe the top guy on their board. But typically, best player available is going to be a very, very strong strategy because as a rebuilding team, we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. I'm not worried about having every single pick fit into a perfect puzzle piece at this point. Give me the best players available, and we'll sort out the rest later. And that's when you start spending money, say in free agency and things like that. So, again, really, really good example here of prioritizing best player available. Lions grab Evan Neal out of Alabama, left tackle, number 5 overall. Well, here we are at the 10th overall pick now, which is the Rams pick here. This pick is proving to be much more difficult than I thought it would be, and far more difficult than even the 5th round pick. I do know the guy I want to pick here, but before I tell you that, I just want to kind of walk you through the thought process here. There have been a couple of receivers taken since the 5th pick. Wilson out of Ohio State, and then you can see there Drake London out of USC goes to the Eagles. I think those are the only 2 guys picked. No quarterbacks have been picked, and I honestly forget now who the others were picked, but nothing too surprising. Definitely players that I liked, though, were coming off of the board there. So this is a tough choice. So again, 10th pick, there's plenty of really, really good players, but as I talked about in the do's and don'ts video, cannot mess up a top 10 pick. You cannot just take a flyer on a guy because you like 1 or 2 things, or you think that maybe this guy might be X, Y, or Z. It's a top 10 pick. I don't care if it's my 2nd pick or not. It cannot be a miss. Top player on the board is Malik Willis. Now, I've talked about him before. He's a scrambler archetype, which doesn't actually match what I'm looking for, but one of the tips I had, or one of the do's, is that he also is probably very close to being a strong arm quarterback. And so with a little bit of development, he would be a good fit. Let me explain to you why I'm not picking Malik Willis, even though he's the top player on the board at a position of need and is the best quarterback, according to the general board, in this entire draft. We know he's a very mobile quarterback. He's got the scrambler archetyped, 2nd fastest 40 time of all quarterbacks, has great agility, good acceleration, and so on, right? So we know he's going to move around, probably get tackled a little bit more often. But check out what you may have not noticed if you're not paying close attention. His injury rating is an F, not a C, not a D, an F. Now, I know quarterbacks don't get hurt very often here, but if I'm kind of playing this as realistically as I can, that's a hard pass. That's a straight up, like, he's not on my board. If you're a scrambler quarterback and you have an injury rating, even if it was C, I probably wouldn't want this guy. But the fact that it's F, we're passing. There's some other guys we like later on. I'm truthfully, I'm kind of hoping that either Ritter or Howell, probably Howell for me. I just think he's going to be a better fit. I think Ritter is going to actually look very similar to Jared Goff, where he's got a big arm, but he's not very accurate deep. Is kind of what it's looking like here. And again, it's nothing too surprising, but just looking at this elite arm strength to go along with D, throw accuracy deep. I have that guy already. It's Jared Goff. And so Sam Howell is a guy who I think checks a few more boxes that I do like, but it's not a guy I would take here with the 10th pick. Another guy I was looking at is Drake Jackson, who is just a really, really interesting prospect. I talked in the do's and don'ts video about the importance of looking beyond just like speed and things like this. And here we have a guy with A, zone coverage, B, man coverage. He's 6'4", 250 as well. So, I mean, this guy's got some really, really nice traits here. But what worries me is the marginal speed. As much as I talked about don't obsess over speed, we're talking about a 10th round or 10th overall pick here. Now, his college pro day checked out better than his combine. He was the 23rd right outside linebacker, 16th. But still, we're talking not 16th in the draft, 16th, not even the 16th outside linebacker, the 16th right outside linebacker. There's just too many numbers there that aren't in the top 10 for me to pick him as a top 10 pick as far as his physical traits go. Now, this is a guy, if he falls to the second round pick, I'm picking him. I mean, he looks really exciting. It's a position of need. I think he could even play on the defensive line. And that's an argument for also not worrying so much about his speed, is that if you played him on the defensive line, that speed's probably fine. But you're looking at, his strength then, and his strength's not bad, but it's not great for a defensive lineman. He is a little undersized to play the defensive line, 6'4", 250, as I mentioned. But maybe I'm passing down, so he'd be a good fit. But again, it's a bit of like a kind of like a tooly player, right? He's kind of a guy, it's like almost like a gimmicky player, really nice guy. But 10th overall pick, I'm just not sure. And so he's going to be a pass for us here, at least with the 10th pick. Again, if he's sitting there in the second round, he'll be hard to pass up. Chris Olave, there's few receivers really still left on the board. Chris Olave out of Ohio State would be the second Ohio State receiver picked here in this draft. You can just kind of get a look at his stats. I'm going to show you these three receivers really quickly. So there you can see that there. Notice his awareness, right? B, awareness is a really good clue that he'll have a high overall with an awareness that high. But sometimes that comes with the sacrifice of a dev trait, but not always. So you have Chris Olave. We have some players here, Stingley Jr. and Corral. I'm skipping over because they had bad news stories there. So I'm going to just trust that that's how it was in the past. That you want to avoid those players. But Treylon Burks, another receiver here, big body guy, just not really what I'm looking for. I love that strength. I love the jumping ability, but I feel like he's going to probably be a little bit too heavy, pun intended, on being a physical receiver versus a deep threat. I don't think with that body build, he's going to be able to really, he'll be kind of like a Kenny Galladay kind of receiver, where you really have to have a special quarterback to make Kenny Galladay pop. We're seeing that the way he played in Detroit versus the way he now plays with the Giants. It's very, very different. And again, just not a whole ton there about Treylon Burks. Just not enough for me to make him a 10th pick. Again, second round, sure. Different story. Very, very different story. Jahan Dotson, complete speedster. He's a guy that if you're in an online league and you click over to this and you see fastest receiver with a 4.26 and then a 4.24 at his college pro day, elite acceleration, elite agility, elite speed, craziness, right? Just complete craziness. He also had a news story written about him, but there's just not a lot here, right? Kick return A, injury C, so a guy who's going to be catching a lot of short passes, getting tackled a lot. He's not very big, so maybe he's getting bumped around a little bit, blocking. I mean, he's another injury-prone guy who, again, would love him if he's there with our second-round pick, but I just don't know if he's a guy I would take with the 10th pick. He reminds me of like a Peter Warwick or something like this, a really early drafted, undersized receiver, super athletic, but this never really came to be. What worries me is that he does have a news story about him that was positive, and he very well could be, the next speed demon in the NFL. So that definitely worries me a little bit. And then again, that's it, guys. I can tell you this. One of the guys we looked at is one of the players I'm picking. And it's going to be Chris Olave. And the reason is I just think he is the most sure thing. Do I know he's going to be some sort of like X factor player? No, and it's probably unlikely. I would even say maybe that Dotson has a better chance of being the really speedy receiver. But there's also, he's a very, very high risk reward. The 10th overall pick in a team that's rebuilding. I cannot mess this up. I know Olave is going to either be at least a star dev or even if he's normal, he's going to come in as one of the highest rated players probably in this draft. And hopefully his slot archetype can quickly transition into deep threat. One of the reasons I think that that can happen is that he has solid strength. It's not great. But if I look at some of his skills, there's a few clues, right? So he has medium route running of A. So that's really nice to see. He's got good hands, B, that high awareness I mentioned. He's going to be a shifty guy after he gets the ball with that A ball carrier vision. So there's some things there that I like. I don't know for sure that he's going to be the end all be all receiver, but he's going to give us some depth. And I just feel like he's our best bet as far as making a safe pick. I was really, really close to rolling the dice on Dotson. We don't have a ton of speed on this team. But again, Olave is not slow. He's a 4.37, right? So being fast, but being also pretty fast and really, really good, to me, is just a more valuable trait. I think he's going to be the more complete receiver. That's what I'm looking for. 6'1", 188. Again, he's got that height. He's certainly not going to be a physical archetype, so he's going to be much, much closer, hopefully, to being a deep threat archetype, which is ultimately what I'm looking at with him. So Chris Olave is going to be our pick, and here we go.
The Jets now on the clock. Let's see what they do.
He was a normal dev, but again, speed still came in high. We don't know his exact overall, but I do think it'll be higher. So again, I can tell you right now, I bet you Dotson will be at least a star, if not more. But I don't regret this pick. This is exactly what I was expecting to see. It was still going to be really good speed. Boy, Dotson's going to be crazy fast. Really, really athletic guy here. So Chris Olave coming in. And I don't think they show us anything new here. He's going to be a good... So not only is he fast, but he's a good route runner, which we don't know about Dotson. I don't care how fast you are, guys, in Madden. You still need to be able to run some decent routes, especially when your quarterback's not very good. So I like Chris Olave. I mean, Ohio State, his name's Chris. He reminds me of Chris Carter a little bit. Kind of a faster Chris Carter. So very happy with this pick. I know a normal dev trait, some people might freak out. I mean, I'm not thrilled that a top 10 pick comes out with normal dev, but I am not upset with this pick. He's not going to be a bust or anything like that. So Chris Olave is the pick at number 10 for the Lions. Let's see what's up next. So we are now at second round, pick 5. And we're going to be looking at some defensive players this time around. Again, just still really early in the draft here, so we're really focused on letting the draft come to us, as I talked about before. And of course, just kind of focusing on best player available where it would make sense. So, for instance, Jarrett Patterson looks to be the best available player. Frank Ragnow is probably our best player on the entire roster. We're just not in need of 2 centers, so we can pass on that. I also don't really want to kind of get too deep into picking similar positions here. We just picked Olave. We don't know a ton about him, which I love. I love that they don't show you the overalls this year of a player when you pick them. So as much as I could say, oh, that player is a bust, I already know it. Let's grab Justin Ross. That's a little bit unrealistic. So for me, Olave gives us 5 receivers now on the team, and I'm okay just kind of moving forward. There are some players I definitely like a lot. I like Nakobe Dean. Daxton Hill is interesting, but he's a guy I'm not going to take a look at here. I actually like Jalen Catalan, but 2 things here that are interesting. I like that it kind of shows you the top fit, and I'm starting to think that maybe this is a clue that he could be a scheme fit for us. So that's a pro, and I actually like a lot of his traits here. Looking for big hits, intercepting the ball, ripping the ball loose, avoids getting flags. That's all good. He did not participate in the scouting combine, which we'll come to in a second. Great agility, elite strength, so that's pretty good. Not crazy speed or anything. A block shedding, so that's really, really good coming from the strong safety spot. Play recognitions. I like the traits here that have been uncovered. I like a lot, except for 2 things. One, his injury rating is F, and very similar to how we passed on Malik Willis. There is also a negative news story about Jalen Catalan with that injury. So he's going to be a hard pass. Now, if he's floating around in round 3 with a round 1-2 talent, I might take a chance on him, even with the injury rating. We'll see. just can't do it yet. As much as I like him, that injury rating has me pretty worried. Nakobe Dean is definitely a guy that is on my list here at middle linebacker. We play a lot of 3-4. He wouldn't be in playing every single down, but this is a guy who is a pretty special player, 6', 225. You could even potentially play safety in some packages, certainly a sub linebacker with that size. So looking for a big hit. Has trouble finding the ball in the air, but that's okay for at least playing a linebacker spot. Can cause fumbles, avoids getting flagged. That's great. Pretty good metrics. Again, we think about like RAS score and that kind of thing, which is a relative athletic score. If you're not familiar with what that is, look it up. Really, really insightful. And again, a very, very good indicator of how a player will transition to the NFL. There aren't many players who have low RAS scores who make it in the NFL, for instance. And then that's a very blanketed statement, but generally there are some positions it doesn't matter as much for. But someone like middle linebacker, RAS score is going to be pretty important. And he has a lot of top 10s and a lot of top 5s and even a lot of number 1 overalls. So he looks like he could be a special player. I'm not sure why it tells me his impact blocking, but I guess maybe he can play fullback. Who knows? Good finesse moves. There's just not a lot here. I don't know a lot about him other than he's kind of a freak athlete. And yeah, it would just be a nice guy at age 21. Lots of room to develop. Probably wouldn't play a ton as a rookie, but would come into certain packages for sure. Let's see. Trent McDuffie has 2 news stories about him. One being about like you absolutely can't kick to this guy. He's a freak kick returner. I think there was 2 stories kind of like that. And I don't quite know what to make of that. He's also 21 years old. For some reason, the Cowboys have him as a fit twice. But he maintains poise at the catch point. That's nice. Can cause fumbles. He's known to attract flags, but that's okay. Pretty quick. Again, going to have a really nice RAS score here. Great strength to go along with it, which is nice with elite speed and elite agility. Acceleration, I wish it was a little bit better for a corner. But again, that kind of does give you some clues that he could be a pretty awesome kick returner. But it's interesting because he has an F kick return score. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if that's good or bad. But the injury rating being a D, again, a little bit troublesome, especially a guy who's going to be returning kicks. He's a guy who could get hurt a lot. But he's got those news stories about him too. So that's very, very intriguing, especially this late in the draft. Another guy has some news stories about him, Isaiah Likely. But to me, drafting another tight end when we have Hawkinson is a bit of a luxury. If we were a better team, sure, having 2 tight ends that probably have dev traits would be great. We've got a lot of other holes to fill. And there's some other players here I like too. But I can tell you right now, it's really coming down to Trent McDuffie, who has, it's like the pro is that he's got 2 news stories floating out there. The con is that he's got some negatives. For as athletic as he is, his skills just don't translate. Like he has an F kick return, and the news stories are about him being a great kick returner. So maybe he has a lot of potential. Like he might be a low-rated like superstar player or something like that. Would be my guess. Not a guy you're going to want to probably throw out there in his first year, maybe, and give him like number 1 corner duties, but maybe he's a guy who could be second or third. Trying to kind of figure out what his slot is our scheme fit. I think he might actually come out as a slot corner because he's super athletic, as you can see, but still pretty strong. So again, that could tell you that he might be man-to-man. But his press is also pretty low, although I guess you could say his press is high compared to his other ratings. So I don't know. It's hard to tell if he would be a man-to-man corner or a slot corner would be my guess here. But Trent McDuffie is, again, has some pros and cons. Very, very intriguing player. But again, also very intriguing is Nakobe Dean, who, he's got a couple places he could be. He's kind of one of those jackknife linebackers where he could be a big safety, even pretty bulky safety, or an underseas, kind of like a Brian Urlacher almost. Before Urlacher put on a ton of size. Before switching to linebacker. But I mean, these metrics are they're wild. Really, really, really athletic guy. In his pro day, not as good, but still pretty solid. Probably can't go wrong with either of these guys. It's just kind of about what's going to be the better fit. Let's back out and we'll look at one more thing here before I make that final call. But I would like to think that either spot isn't too bad. Actually, I like to look at the team roster through the salary page, just because you can really see how the kind of the team roadmap, so to speak, of how things look moving forward. So let's start with corner. So of course we have Okudah. He's got 2 more years. He is not really living up to the 3rd overall pick that he was, but again, not a bad player. 78 overall. He's right now our corner number 1 this year, but not a scheme fit, so he's a little slower to develop. As I've mentioned in other videos, I don't like to edit positions. I like the uniqueness of not editing them, where not every single player is developing at the exact same super fast speed. So I like this. I like the added challenge of Okudah not exactly being an ideal fit, but still a promising player. Awarie right now is a corner. I know people probably freak out like, oh, you can't play with, I need better players, but 75 is not bad in Madden. But again, similar, not an exact match as far as him being, what do you want to call it, just a scheme fit and whatnot. But he's also a guy that might be okay at safety at 6'2", 205. And this is something actually I'd be really liking the Lions to do with him. A lot of Lions fans are loving Awarie because he has 6 interceptions and is like top 5 or something, or top 3 in interceptions in the league. But if you look at his advanced metrics, if you look at his, say like his PFF score, it's pretty bad actually. And so to me, he's making some stellar plays, but he's also giving up some plays. And to me, it's like, let this guy just be a natural playmaker. Put him at free safety and see how it goes. And maybe that's something we do here, just kind of play him out of position if we go and draft the cornerback. Because beyond that, again, we don't have any financial obligation at corner, that's for sure. And it never hurts to have more corners. And again, ideally, it looks like he's going to be probably a dev trait player, the cornerback, with the news stories, and also maybe a kick returner. But he does have that D injury rating and an F kick return rating, as odd as that is. So very strange. Middle linebacker was a huge need for us. We actually had Alex Anzalone made the Pro Bowl because he just racked up so many tackles on a bad team. But we did not re-sign him, even though he was only 26 or 27 years old. We instead signed Kaiser White, I think is his name. So again, another undersized guy, 6'2", 218. This is a guy we could probably put into a few different spots. He's not an exact scheme fit, but could be very, very soon. And so he's actually smaller even than Nakobe Dean. And so that would give us some options here. Certainly in 3-4, he'd be a perfect fit. And it would definitely give us some options to help out a pretty weak free safety situation. Strong safety is not strong, pun intended there. But at least we have a holdover here in Kareem Jackson for the year, just trying to get some talent on this team. We had a lot of free agents turn us down because we're just not a very good team. So, guys, I don't know. This is a tough pick here as well. All these picks have been really tough. So I'm liking the new scouting, even though it's kind of quirky and a little wonky at times. I like the challenge. It's really making me think about what to do here, because I can move Awarie to safety. I could move, again, we have a little bit more freedom with Kaiser White possibly being, we'd have 2 good sub linebackers. Oof, this is tough. This is really tough. But I think to me, I'm going to roll the dice on the cornerback because he has the dev trait, because he has, it's just a more important position, especially with how our team is looking. And you could even make the argument of like, well, we already have an undersized middle linebacker who could play sub. So I think that's what we're going to be doing here is we're going to roll the dice if it actually populates the draft list here. We're going to go ahead and take one of the last remaining players that has a dev trait listed. Now, Kobe Dean is rated higher, but again, as we get down lower into the draft here, I'm okay with that. By the way, there's some other decent middle linebackers still floating around, so, Devin Lloyd, maybe he falls. It's unlikely, but he could to an early 3rd round pick for us. Who knows? But corner, how it was in previous Maddens, if you're not picking a corner in the first 2, maybe 3 rounds, don't bother because they're all pretty trash after that. So We're going to go with Trent McDuffie out of Washington. They've produced some really nice defensive backs over the last recent years. And we're going to see if that trend continues. It is a bit of a roll of the dice for sure. I don't love that his injury is also a D. This is a risky pick. And again, I'm like talking myself out of it, right? Going back and forth between him and Dean. And this is fun. This is cool. 6 foot 225. Oh man, I don't know. It's like Dean is this. He's like the cleaner player. He's such a clean player. They're both 21, right? Yeah, we're gonna go Trent McDuffie. I'm gonna stick with my first answer. Let's see how it goes. Hey, there we go.
Okay,
There's the hidden dev
Chargers
trait.
up now. They're on the clock.
Look at that speed, 95 speed, 91 acceleration, 92 agility. It's interesting. His agility had a much higher rating than his acceleration. I was a little bit worried about that, but it's only a 1 point difference. 90 jumping. This guy is a freak athlete, and he's a hidden dev trait. So super happy about this pick. Really happy with all 3 picks so far. Even Olave being a normal dev, this is looking pretty good so far. His strength being so low tells me he's probably not a man-to-man cover. He probably is going to be a scheme fit with him being a slot guy. So this could really, really work out well. Again, it's strange his kick return and injury has me a little worried, but boy, this is going to be, I'm really happy with this pick. So let's jump ahead now to the start of the 3rd round. And there are a couple guys. There's actually quite a few guys that I like. This might be finally, hopefully, I don't want to jinx it, but an easier pick this time. There are a couple players who are really at the top of the draft board. They're going to be really nice picks here as far as quality is concerned at the top of the 3rd round. They will have this kind of round 2 to 3 projection, which is the best available right now. And there's a couple players that actually still have positive draft stories here. One is Darian Kennard, guard out of Kentucky. Now, we have Jonah Jackson. Guard's not a huge need for us. Jonah Jackson's a nice player. I believe he's a star dev. Younger, probably 25 or so, 76 or so overall. Good developmental player, scheme fit. So Kennard's a nice player, but it would be kind of like, geez, where are we going to get this guy in? Is he going to be like a guard 3 to start the season? Do we start him at right guard? Good problem to have, but again, might be my second choice. My top choice, if he falls to us, is going to be Devonte Wyatt, who had one of the news stories about being like the All-Star Game MVP or something, and they talked about him being a playmaker. I'm really, really big about finding defensive tackles who can generate pass rush up the middle. To me, it's the shortest route to the quarterback. If you can get a guy that can get up the middle and not just around the edges or off a blitz, it's a huge, huge advantage that not every team has. It's something the Lions haven't really had since maybe Ndamukong Suh. And so I think getting a guy like that who can come in, especially at his size, 6'3", 315. The Lions this year are playing a 3-4 under defense. So I mean, this is a good fit all around. My luck, he'll probably get picked the pick before us, but he's who I'm really, really hoping for. There's also a couple guards that I like, or it's not guards, I'm sorry, defensive ends. Zachary Carter, I like Zach Harrison, and I like Boy Mafe, I think is how you say his name. All 3 of these guys would be nice picks, but truthfully, they'd be consolation prizes off of who I'm really hoping falls to us. So hopefully, that's what we're going to end up with. Again, there's still some good players here. We're starting to kind of slot into, just kind of grabbing what we can here. At 3rd round's probably the last real chance we have of maybe getting a guy we could plug in as a potential starter. But let's see if we can get lucky and have that defensive tackle fall to us.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
Okay, so corner goes to Minnesota.
And the Texans now on the clock.
There goes one of the ends.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, we're going to get at least one of those guys. So that's good. So Zamir White, running back at Georgia, goes to the Texans.
Okay, it's the Lions now on the
clock. All right, so we're going to get our pick here. So finally, we have an easy pick. And guys, as much as, I love guards too. So this is really kind of the sweet spot of drafting guards. I talked earlier about, don't waste an early pick on a guard because traditionally you can find guards in the NFL and in Madden right around this range, kind of 3rd round. But Devonte Wyatt, I'm guessing he's going to probably come in like not rated like super high, not really ready to start. But again, he is 23, so let's hold that judgment, I guess. But looking for a big hit, has a lot of different move varieties that he can use, has a motor that's always running hot. He'll attract flags, I guess, but that's okay. Metrics come out okay. Acceleration's good, which is really nice to have in that kind of speed rush defensive tackle. I'm hoping he'll end up being. Elite strength. I mean, that's the biggest thing here because I want him to also be able to really hold it down, especially at his size. So elite strength, he's got 40 and 41 bench press reps. That's just ridiculous. He's got great vert. I mean, this dude's just a crazy good athlete. Um, and I don't really care how slow he is. If he can get off the ball quickly, he's going to cause problems. So B awareness actually tells me I'm going to take back what I said earlier about him not being a highly rated player. He will probably be a normal dev, but higher rated, especially for a third round pick. I love the injury rating of A and the stamina of B. He's a guy who could play every down. I'm not going to get in there with finesse moves. That's okay. So maybe he won't be as much of a speed rush as I think, but the other chance is that he has a high awareness and could have a dev trait. If that's the case, this guy could be like a sleeper X factor player. So really excited. I think the only negative I see of him is he's 23 years old. If we go look at the guard, who is technically rated a little above him, he's 22. Avoids getting flags. Pretty good bench press as well. Elite strength there. That's great to see. But I mean, I'm sorry, just a defensive tackle, even the potential of a game-changing defensive tackle is a far more valuable pick here. He's got the news story, as does Kennard, but Devonte Wyatt's going to be our pick. Another Bulldog coming to the Lions here with DeAndre Swift and, of course, Matthew Stafford before. So continuing our little pipeline, I guess, of Georgia Bulldogs coming to the Lions. Let's see how Devonte Wyatt checks out here with the 5th pick in the 3rd round.
All right, now on the clock, the Chargers.
Normal dev trait, again, not a huge surprise. 80 acceleration is nice to see. 96 strength. Yeah, interesting guy. Interesting player there, Devonte Wyatt. Our previous pick was the 5th pick in the 3rd round, and here we are at the start of the 4th round now. And Darian Kennard lasted all the way until the 1st pick of the 4th round. He goes to the Vikings. There's been a lot of players in this draft who are ending up in my division. However, not on my Lions roster. My Lions don't have a 4th round pick, so we will be back here in just a minute when we pick in the 5th round. So now we're into the 5th round, which means we have 3 picks left. And this is where I really start to pretty heavily start to transition away from best player available and really start looking at filling out some team needs as far as depth. Now, again, I'm not really looking for starters at this point. But what you do get by adding depth here is not just depth and young depth, but very inexpensive depth. If you've ever tried to sign free agents here in Madden at the start of the season, they're not cheap. And so you're not usually finding guys with any sort of value for, say, under $1 million. Where you will in rounds 5, 6, and 7, and even round 4, you're going to find players that are far less expensive, players you could take a little time to develop, and they also provide some depth. And even if they do have to come in and start in a pinch, it's not the end of the world. They're going to get some experience, and that's going to help their development as well. So really be looking around. You don't want to kind of oversaturate a particular draft position, but at the same time, if you pick 2 receivers or something like that, I mean, a lot of teams run 3 receivers most of the time, so there are exceptions to those rules. But typically teams aren't drafting 2 quarterbacks. It's happened before with RG3 and Kirk Cousins and things like that. But typically, I mean, you really want to conserve those picks. And speaking of quarterbacks, this is not a spot I pick. I just won't be picking quarterbacks even beyond the 2nd round probably. Because if there's a guy I like enough, why haven't I picked him yet? And so we won't be picking a quarterback at all with these last 3 picks. I could tell you that right now. So I do know who I want to pick. And what I'm looking here is one of the changes I actually like a lot with the scouting update. And that's you don't actually ever get these projections confirmed. A lot of times in the old scouting mode, you would have these guys like a Khalil Shakir or a Reggie Roberson, and it's like they're floating around, and you're like, why are these guys still here in round 5? It's like, other teams must have scouted them and realized that they're a bust or something like that. And so you'd start to want to skip them, and that just seems kind of silly, right? Because not all teams are going to identify players exactly the same every single time. So I kind of like it here because now you're kind of rolling the dice of like, well, geez, is this guy falling, or is there a reason he's falling? What's going on? And so um, I I like Khalil Shakir, and I think if a lot of folks who are drafting might lean towards picking him because they're going to look and see, wow, in the 5th round, look at this elite agility and great speed. He's got a sub 430. I mean, he's going to be super fast, but what I see here is what I look at mostly is speed is fine. You can find speed, guys, but you can't just run speed out on the field and just expect it to be good for you. Um, it's nice that he has such great run blocking, which is really interesting because his strength is poor. But I see medium route running as an F, and that's really like the only thing I have as far as like his ability to catch passes and whatnot, and that's really bad to go along with a D injury rating. So he's not a terrible 5th round pick by any means, but it's not really a position. He'd be our 6th receiver at this point, which I like to carry 6 receivers, but I'm trying to leave myself open of maybe even signing a veteran to come in to that group. So I'm going to wait on him. I really like Jamari Salier. I'm not sure how you say his name, but I do like this guy. I like to look for a lot of strength, and he has a really nice bench press there. So that's something I'm looking for. He was going to be my pick, but again, I look and I see just some ratings that just aren't really impressive just yet. Maybe that's because he has a dev trait and is just going to be rated like a 65 or something like that. I don't know. I'd almost rather have a guy who's like 69 or 70 or something with a normal dev trait at this point. But again, both of those are pretty hard to find in round 5, but just wasn't loving Salier here. But either of these guys would be fine if I hadn't found anything else. I was really hoping I'd like Bubba Bolden, but he looked more like a strong safety to me. He's got excellent tackling, elite strength, which is just fantastic, but I'm just not really sold that he can be a cover guy, and I really rely on my free safety a lot. I play a lot of cover 3, and this is just not a guy who's going to be a fit. If he was a strong safety, I think he would actually be a pretty good fit for us. Really sure tackler, really, really strong player, but it's just not a good fit there. So again, something worth evaluating. And then the last 2 guys I was looking at, let's go to Damon Clark here, or Damone. I'm not sure how you say his name, but Damon Clark, I believe. I like his size a lot. There's a lot here I like. The scheme that Dan Campbell uses in Madden here is he likes power rushers coming off that right outside linebacker spot. And he's got great strength, so it's possible. And I actually like a lot of his scores here. Awareness B tells me he'll have a pretty high overall, probably normal dev trait, which is fine. Excellent pursuit. Excellent. He's got really, really good intangible scores there. But what worries me is just even if it was like marginal or like decent speed and acceleration, like for an outside linebacker who's only 245, like that's really slow. And again, I would still take it. Just it's a 5th round pick. I mean, you're sending out flyers here, right? You're just kind of rolling the dice on any of these picks. And he wouldn't be a bad 5th round pick either. But the guy we're going to go with here is O'Shawn Mathis, and he is out of TCU, 22 years old, a tad undersized for what we like, but he's going to be a straight pass rushing left end, I think. So at the very least, he'll be a nice rotational piece. We don't have a ton of depth at the left end spot, really any end spot. We have a Levi Wanzarike, and that's about it. Michael Brockers, who's super old and not very good. So this is really a position that the Lions have neglected for a long time, including my draft here, just kind of the way that draft fell to us. We just haven't really been able to fill this spot. So, but I like a lot of his kind of RAS score stuff here is what I'm referring it to, but elite jumping, elite agility, still got solid speed. So he's a guy that I'm intrigued by. He's really long, again, 6'5", 257. And I like other stuff I see here. I love the A stamina with the B finesse. I mean, he can come in and hopefully on pass rushing down, supply us with something here. It was a really close between really the guard, Damon Clark, who I really still like. But if he's there in the next round for sure, I mean, he'd be a great pick. But I don't know if any of these guys will be. But we're gonna go with O'Shawn Mathis here. He will be our 5th-round draft pick. Let's see how we did.
On the clock now, it's the Chargers, and time is ticking.
So normal dev trait, not a huge surprise. He's a really athletic guy, which is what we kind of knew. Agility 86, jumping 84, still got good speed, decent strength. But again, strength isn't really his game here. So yeah, for a 5th round pick, we'll take it. Really excited to see what his overall will be. All right, we're into the 6th round. We have 2 picks left, and this will be an interesting conversation because this is the first time I'll have ever done something like this in a Madden draft. Let's talk about what we're looking at here. So I mentioned previously we're looking to kind of fill depth. You're really just kind of rolling dice at this point, hoping to win a cheap lottery ticket here. But surprisingly, there's 2 players we're looking at last round still here: Khalil Shakir and Damon Clark. Both like these guys. I just keep looking at Clark though, and I keep getting really scared about just the speed grading out as poor, along with poor acceleration. Just really, really worries me. I mean, his 40-yard dash is barely under 5 seconds. That's like offensive lineman speed. And as nice as I think he could have some ratings, I just don't really know how he'll perform in played games. Hesitant. So I'm going to be passing on him a 2nd round. Khalil Shakir, again, lots of speed. I really like that. I just don't know what else he's going to bring. And I actually like another receiver even more who may be available in the 7th round, which is Eric Izukanma. I'm not sure how to say his name, but similar speed guy, sub 4.5 40 easily, but also has really nice strength, great jumping ability, and has a B deep route as well as B short route. So I would actually rather take a flyer on this guy. And again, probably wait till round 7 because he's not going to be the pick, nor is Shakir. There are a lot of other players I like. There's a potential like receiving running back I like. There's a blocking tight end I like. Here at Jeremy Ruckert. There's some offensive line depth I would like. But there's one player that might surprise you that we're going to end up picking. And it's kicker Andre Schmidt. Schmidt? I guess Schmidt. And he's out of Syracuse. He has a news story, or even 2 news stories about him just like playing some kickball game and like always kicking, it's just like annihilating it. And I never noticed this, but they actually have a little bit of a different scouting report. So as I go over to here, instead of having like arm strength or something like that, you can see it has kick power. And so although it doesn't tell me his kick accuracy here, it does on the next screen, which is A, it tells me that his current kick power is great. And I need a kicker. And a cheap kicker is even better than spending $3 or $4 million on a above average kicker, which is a lot of what free agency is going to be bringing. So to me, this is a guy that could end up being like a career Lion. It's a 6th round pick, and I think when you talk about value, I mean, kicker is your highest scoring position on most teams. They score more points than anyone. So having a good, reliable kicker who's going to be young, probably have a dev trait, and be cheap, this guy could end up being an absolute steal here in the 6th round. He could be there in the 7th round, but there's so many other guys that I like that I would be willing to just kind of take whatever's left in the 7th round here when we pick, I don't know what pick it is, the 18th pick in the 7th round. So it's going to be a while. And I don't know if Schmidt would be available there. So we're going to go ahead and pick him now. He's the first special teams player taken in this draft. And we're going to make that pick and see what it looks like here. So the 6th round pick, pick number 5 in the 6th round, Andre Schmidt, I believe it is, kicker out of Syracuse. Okay, so normal dev trait.
Who do they have their eye on?
But 95 kick power. So as long as that kick accuracy comes through as A, we have a kicker here. Again, he'll probably be rated in the 60s, but I mean, he'll be a guy that he can kick for us for a number of years pretty cheap, at least 4 years. So that'll be a nice find there. Was really curious to see what he would look like as far as a dev trait. He didn't have one even with the news story, but a draftable kicker isn't something you typically see. And again, kicker is a very important spot. We were able to grab a starter in the 6th round, so there is absolute value there. And we'll see what else is left here for round 7. All right, so here we are, the 18th pick in the 7th round. It's the Lions' last pick. I know who I'm going to take. But let's take a look at what's available. So first, Khalil Shakir is still here, right? This is the guy that we were looking at with our 5th round pick at least. Still here in the 7th round. He still has a grade round 3-4 projection. I mean, far and away the highest rated player in this draft. He's been sitting at the top of the board now for 60-something picks, probably, at least, if not more. Strange. But again, there's nothing here that tells me the other teams know something that I don't know. So it's interesting. It's very tempting. Again, super athletic guy. He's not strong, but if you look at his other physicals, I mean, they're all top 5 except for broad jump. Super athletic guy. I mean, this guy could be a really nice slot receiver, a guy you can move into motion. I'm hoping if he were the pick, short route running, maybe that pops and it's a little bit better. But again, this is a nice flyer pick for sure. It was a nice flyer pick in the 5th round, so certainly in the 7th round. The other guy I'm considering is Cordell Volson. Now, we already picked the tackle with the 5th overall pick. We have, of course, Sewell at the right tackle, and then we also have Taylor Decker. So we already have 3 really strong tackles, but this would be a pick for if we were to draft, or I should say trade Taylor Decker, get some value, take the cap hit. We would need another tackle, and then this guy could be it. Really strong, something I look for. I like his size. He's 24, while his Shakir is 22, but great strength. He was a 2nd and 3rd left tackle in the bench press, so that's nice to see. Impact block of B, so again, his run blocking stuff's pretty low. His pass blocking could be lower, but I would think maybe this guy is a pass blocking prototype, which would be nice, something we could develop as a backup tackle. I think the key, though, with this, why I'm going to pass on Cordell Volson right now, is 2 reasons. One, he's already 24 compared to Shakir, who is 22. And even if this guy is good, he's never really going to break the starting lineup with us. He's a depth guy, period. We have Penei Sewell picked 7th overall 2021. Now we have Evan Neal picked 5th overall in 2022. This guy is a forever backup, which is a 7th round pick. That's going to be the case anyway. And we also just don't know. We don't know what Neal's going to be rated. We don't know if we're trading Taylor Decker. And so for me, it makes a lot of sense to go with Khalil Shakir. The last guy I was looking at was that third down back. He's been sitting in the draft forever. I think he's a 3rd down back. Catching traffic's B, short route C. But again, what kind of turns me away a little bit is just the speed poor. And I preached a lot about don't be obsessed with speed, and I'm not. But poor is a different thing. Getting a guy the ball and some space, letting him run, he can catch the ball, but like if he's not getting any sort of separation, he's not able to get up the line quickly, those screen passes aren't going to do a lot. And it's so easy to find running backs in Madden, in the free agent market, guys who can come in and play different roles. So if he had better speed, he'd be a consideration too, Jalen Warren out of Oklahoma State. But gosh darn it, we're going to roll the dice, and it's not really a dangerous dice roll at this point in the 7th round, almost the end of the draft. We're going to take out of Boise State, Khalil Shakir, the receiver, 6 foot, 190, athletic dude, no question. Don't know what he's going to be on this roster. Maybe he's a decent kick returner. We'll see. He's certainly athletic enough to do it. So Khalil Shakir will be the pick. Let's see how it went here.
On the clock now. Let's see who they have their eye on.
So he's got the same speed as Chris Olave, 94. Great agility, change of direct. So this is a guy you could definitely just kind of throw some screen passes to. Again, not a lot of strength, but if you can kind of get him out there, get him some blocking, I mean, he can do something. So at 22, very happy. I'm just thrilled with the draft so far. I think every single pick has made a lot of sense for us. There were some guys I was hoping would follow us that didn't, but we were able to pivot, use strategy, never panic, and really just kind of think through these picks here and just see and understand that a team, especially a bad team, is not built in one draft. It's okay to even draft at a position where you already have some starters. If it's going to help you in the long run, if it makes sense to kind of build out that team. We followed a lot of those best practices, those do's and don'ts I talked about in a previous video. We didn't force a quarterback. We didn't panic. I mean, we just really just tried to break down and let the draft come to us. So again, I hope these 2 videos together make a lot of sense and just kind of show you my draft process and how I play this out. It's very similar to strategy I would take in real life. It works well in Madden here. And again, just not always being obsessed with speed. And as you can see, you can still find speed later on in the draft. So, but that's it, everyone. I'm Mike Lowe. You can find me on Twitter at MikeLowe47. I appreciate you guys checking out my videos. Give it a like. Leave a comment if you got a question. Make sure you subscribe if you'd like as well. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.